Alright, you guys knew it was coming. The granddaddy of shaky cam forest horror. Here we are. Hello and welcome to another Sci-Fi-Night special, and of course, Happy Halloween! So, since we're in the month of October, that of course means spookiness, and we're gonna check out one of the most groundbreaking horror films of the past 2 decades, see what made it so great, and what kind of a legacy it's left. In the year 1999, a horror film was released that was more than a movie, it was an event. We're of course talking about Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick's The Blair Witch Project. Whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny that this changed things. It brought both found footage and indie filmmaking into the spotlight. It's often seen as a defining found footage movie, and even changed the way that films were marketed. Hell, a lot of people didn't even know that this was a movie. They thought that this was real footage of a horrific event that had actually happened. Alright, so in hindsight, that's pretty stupid, but keep in mind this was the 90s, and judging by the 90s fashion trends you can see here, it's not too strange to think that people didn't really have a best judgment. I mean, seriously, that's the real horror right there. So in the spirit of Halloween, let's examine this classic, what influenced it, the making of it, and what kind of a legacy the Blair Witch Project has left. By now most people already know the story. A group of 3 friends travel to a suspicious town in Maryland to film a documentary about the local legend of the Blair Witch. At first they encounter weird townsfolk, venture into a forest, and that's where things get creepy, supernatural, and crazy.
Don't you stop! It's hanging all over! Look around!
No way.
It's all over the place.
Holy shit.
And very shaky and dark as well.
Oh shit!
You start encountering weird stuff, like stickmen hung up in the trees, and strange sounds coming from the woods at night.
Listen. Hello? Hello?
Eventually one of them disappears, and by the end of it, they stumble upon the lair of the Blair Witch and meet their doom. Alright, so to be honest, this is a pretty standard formula. 3 people investigating something creepy out in the woods and bad shit happens. I mean, come on, that's a dime a dozen. But it's the way they handled it that makes it stick out. I mean, let's be honest, how many films have we not seen about city folk heading to a small town where superstitious stuff is going on, ignoring the strange locals, only to get picked off one by the spooky thing residing there? I mean, come on, it's basically every cabin in the woods horror film ever made. The Blair Witch Project approached the idea with a different angle, but not necessarily a new one. So a lot of people think that the Blair Witch Project was the first found footage movie ever, but it actually wasn't, it was just the most widely publicized. So found footage has been around since the 80s, but the style of it has been around for about 100 years. Legendary horror author H.P. Lovecraft would often write his classic creepy stories in the styles of a diary, written by the person who experienced the terrible and often tentacle-filled ordeal, and found by the reader, us. Also, it may not be found footage, but a film that without a doubt influenced the Blair Witch Project was the 1922 Swedish/Danish film Häxan, which means the witch. Häxan is a fake documentary about the spread of witchcraft throughout Europe. The film has a gothic style and without a doubt can be seen as a precursor to the Blair Witch Project. The fact that the production company used the same name, Häxan Productions, is a clear sign of the influence in playing homage. Yeah, there you go, us Swedes were doing fake witch documentaries before it was cool, and before the internet. The first horror movie to use the style was probably 1980's Cannibal Holocaust, directed by Ruggero Deodato. Due to the killing of real animals in the movie, I've actually objected to seeing it, but basically it's a film that's about the discovery of footage shot by a documentary crew that were brutally killed in the Amazon.
Then their footage and bodies are found by a shocked rescue party.
Till this day, it's considered one of the most controversial films ever made, and the found footage style was very convincing. In fact, the director was actually arrested, accused of actually killing the actors and making a snuff film. It wasn't until he brought the actual actors to court that he proved his innocence. So yeah, people actually thought that the actors had been murdered, and obviously this was a pretty big influence for Blair Witch Project as well.
And I've watched the scene over and over with a girl impaled on a pole, and we thought that has to be real. Like, of course they took a dead body and just shoved a pole on it.
It's horrible.
So since then, there have been other found footage films released before the Blair Witch Project, but the most influential and similar is an interesting little film from 1998 called Last Broadcast. This fake documentary follows the crew of a TV show called Fact or Fiction, who venture into mysterious woods in hopes of finding the legendary Jersey Devil, but only one of the crew members returns alive, with a video from the event being the only evidence as to what happened.
What really happened that night? And is Jim Seward truly responsible?
So obviously these two movies have a pretty similar premise, but what was it that caused the Blair Witch Project to become the smash hit that it was? Well, let's examine why, starting with the making of it. So while the acting isn't really the greatest, the characters at least seem pretty authentic in the Blair Witch Project, especially in their freakouts. And it's probably because they were genuinely freaked the hell out.
Oh my god, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?
There wasn't really an actual script, meaning that pretty much every line of dialogue was improvised, and a lot of the time we didn't really know what was going to happen, such as when we start hearing noises in the night outside the tent.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck is that?
Fuck!
That was the director and other crew members messing with him in the dark without their knowledge.
What'd you think that was last night?
Personally,
Yeah.
I think it was someone fucking with your head.
The actors would be left messages every morning, giving them a very basic outline of where they were supposed to go, more or less improvising the whole film as they went along. For example, the notes would say something like, "You're getting sick of Heather's leadership." The actor would just have to make it up by himself after that. They would also try to stay in character for as long as possible, only breaking character when they spoke the safety word.
We came up with this real-time format to shoot the solid 8 days out in the woods and keep the actors immersed in their characters as much as possible.
A lot of it was, I think, just acclimating to being in character and staying in character. I mean, not many situations in a film that you get on do you have the camera rolling all the time. They would watch the dailies at night and give us instructions, character motivations on what they saw and where they wanted to take it for the next day.
What was the safety word, you ask? Well, taco, of course. Fuck yeah, tacos would totally make me feel safer in scary haunted woods. The guerrilla style of filmmaking that kept the actors almost as much in the dark as us really works to the film's strength, and the reactions feel pretty genuine and real. Like I said, even if the acting is just okay.
You smartass.
A lot of the time, people in found footage films seem unrealistic and just obnoxiously stupid. Here we have 3 scared film students trying to shoot a documentary. Their actions make a bit more sense, and overall it adds a layer of realism as opposed to other found footage films where I'm constantly asking myself while they're still filming.
I want to really avoid any cheese. I want to present this in as straightforward a way as possible, and I think the legend is unsettling enough.
Also, during the duration of the 8-day shoot, the producers actually left the 3 actors less and less food per day to add to the conflict and anxiety of the characters, which definitely seems to have worked.
Do I have a meatball?
Just one meatball.
And a long red glass of wine?
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I sure as hell would be super anxious if I was left less and less food every day of a shoot like this. Anyway, another aspect that really elevated the Blair Witch Project was the marketing.
The only piece of evidence found by police was Joshua Leonard's car, parked on Black Rock Road.
Keep in mind the internet still wasn't as big as it is today, but there were fake websites made leading up to the release of a film, and the actors were told to keep away from media, while the producers simultaneously circulated fake missing posters for the actors. It went so far that actress Heather Donahue's mother actually received sympathy cards for people thinking her daughter had actually gone missing, presumed dead. I just hope Heather Donahue notified her family about this before going on the shoot, because otherwise that's a real asshole move to do to your parents. It seems like there's built up an aura of mystique around the film, making many people believe it was real and turning it into a real event. Shooting wrapped after just 8 days and finished on Halloween night. Yeah, I shit you not, it finished on Halloween night. The original director's cut was over 2.5 hours long and contained so much more content than the finished product, which was finally seen in theaters July 16, 1999. When released, it became the highest grossing independent film of all time, until My Big Fat Greek Wedding came along, but it still left quite an impact. So let's examine just how big of an impact this movie had. Since this was a film with such a realistic feel to it, thousands of fans flocked to the real-life town of Burkittsville searching for anything Blair Witch related, despite the entire well-crafted lore being made up exclusively for the film. In fact, there were so many fans out in the woods between 1999 and 2000 that they scared away most of the local wildlife, making it an extremely unsuccessful season for hunters. Something I don't really have a problem with.
No, we'll save that for later.
To say that the film was a success is an understatement, because it became the film to see and even coined the term found footage.
You're frightening. What do you think? Fucking hell.
The film was made by 2 film students for around $60,000, but earned over $248 million. The actors went from being completely unknown to appearing on talk shows, and Heather Donahue's improvised monologue towards the end became a classic horror moment.
I love you, Mom. Dad. I'm so sorry.
This labor of love had paid off and become something way bigger than anyone thought it would. Yeah, and you know what that means. It's time for merchandising. After the success of the film, the story was adapted into several mediums. Comic books were released in August of 1999, a series of books were written between 2000 and 2001, there was even a video game released around a year after the film's release, which I admittedly haven't played, but it seems pretty atmospheric and faithful to the story, despite some clear-cut looking design and gameplay flaws. And of course, as with any successful project, much to the disliking of the original directors, a sequel was made the next year. The creators of the original film were more interested in doing a prequel, something that explained more about the Blair Witch legacy, but the studio decided a sequel should be in the works and went ahead without them. And that's why in October of 2000 they released Blair Witch 2: Book of Shadows. Now here's the thing, there was actually a pretty original and unique idea for this film, something that was more meta and actually in style of the first film.
You know, if you don't believe in the Blair Witch, then why the hell did you bother to come?
I thought the movie was cool.
For more on the original director's cut and how the film was meant to be seen, I highly recommend Good Bad Flicks Exploring episode, which you can view by clicking here. The thing is, Artisan Entertainment altered the original film, changed the soundtrack, tone, re-edited the film, and even added footage. For more on why Hollywood is ruining its own movies, check out my Sci-Fi-Night Light video by clicking the annotation on the screen. So at release, while being a mild financial success, the film completely bombed amongst fans and critics. But there are actually other films that were also inspired by it. The 2005 Japanese horror film Noroi, The Curse, took J-horror in a different direction with a fake documentary about a cursed forest, and it's hard not to draw parallels between this and Blair Witch Project. The 2003 film The Last Horror Film is super meta and definitely draws some inspiration from our favorite failed forest documentary.
You see that there? We're making a film of this.
And the 2006 film Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. In it, we follow an aspiring serial killer in the handheld style with some kind of found footage. The big one that truly kicked off found footage fever was 2007's Paranormal Activity, which was made in exactly the same low-budget found footage style and also made a killing on a tiny independent budget. So obviously it's left a huge impact, but that begs the question, does it still hold up? Alright, so short answer, not really. Long answer, here we go. Now that the internet information age is upon us and we can fact-check a film's claims, it's harder to pass off a horror film as real. Now that the hype has died down and we all know the ending, how is it almost 20 years later? Well, I mean, it's fine in my opinion. Sure, it's definitely not as scary as it was back in the day, but that's also because we've seen similar or even the same thing done several times with bigger budgets and better production. That's not to say more money equals better film.
Oh, you can't do that.
I really like the minimalistic and most of all realistic look and feel. At first, actress Heather Donahue thought this might be a snuff film, and it kinda looks like one, which definitely adds a layer of unease to everything. There was real old school and passionate filmmaking involved here as well. Directors Sanchez and Myrick didn't have the most clear vision, but they knew the result and feeling they were going for. They took risks and used unconventional methods that went all in on this project, which I really admire. That passion and creativity is clear, and it truly elevates the film. Now, 17 years after the independent film took the world by storm, we're getting a much delayed third film that unfortunately seems more like a Blair Witch Project ripoff than an actual entry to the series. So I haven't actually seen the new movie yet, but I at least hope it retains some of the subtlety that the first film had. And chances are pretty slim though, as I'm sure they'll be trying to top the scares from the first film at every chance, and I'm sure it'll be Jump Scare City. Alright, that begs another question. Is the Blair Witch Project still scary? Well, so the first time I saw this I was like 12 years old or something, and I found it pretty damn freaky. In today's day and age, it's hard to say that it's still as scary as it was when it was released and all the hype surrounding it has died down, but it still definitely is very creepy and unnerving.
Josh, where are you? Tell me where you are!
And of course, the creepy-ass part of the house at the end of the film will definitely hold up as well.
I'm hitting downstairs. Come on! I hear him downstairs! Come on! Josh! Josh? Josh, is that you down there?
I still liked the film, even though I wasn't really a part of a hype train that ran the film production into the spotlight. It's a film where the final product is more influential than lasting itself. The acting is realistic, but not necessarily very good. The film lacks some polish, but that's also kind of a point. So basically, a Blair Witch Project was pretty much a product of its time, and it couldn't really have been released at any other point in the late 90s. Had we done so, it just wouldn't really have had the same impact. So yeah, everything just worked out pretty perfectly the first time this was released. Sure, it's still not as scary as it was back in '99, and if you don't find it at least a bit scary, I totally understand that as well. It's a style of film that isn't for everyone. Now, the movie has been parodied hundreds of times, and it's also been very influential in entertainment. It showed that with the right creativity, passion, and talent, you can actually achieve a Halloween night miracle. So in other words, I guess you could say that I admire the film more than I actually like it, because it doesn't really hold up super well in today's day and age, and it's definitely not as scary as it was when it was released. But overall, I still kind of enjoy it for what it is, and it's a product of its time, so we let a little bit slide. But what do you guys think of the Blair Witch Project? Do you love it, hate it, are you somewhere in the middle? Let us know in the comments below. That does it for this Sci-Fi-Night special on the Blair Witch Project. Halloween month continues, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween.
Okay, who wouldn't let me have a cigarette in the tent, but he's allowed to fart as much as he wants?
No,
I really don't think
never gave Mike any fart allowance.